We return now to our top stories, the spat over Starlink and Europe's courting of the global south. And joining me now for an exclusive interview is Daniel Fried, former US ambassador to Poland. Good evening to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good evening.
So Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski is accusing Elon Musk of, quote, making money on war crimes by allowing Russian forces to use his Starlink satellite system in Ukraine. Should, in your mind, such valuable Western technology be kept out of Russian hands, or is Musk simply doing business?
Well, U.S. policy for some years has been to deny Russia access to high technology. That was the Biden administration policy, and Trump has not reversed it. In fact, he has continued it. So the notion that the U.S. would in any way do anything to support Russia's war machine or its high-tech sector seems to run counter to U.S. interests. Now, Elon Musk's Starlink has been critical for Ukraine, and Elon Musk points that out all the time. Elon Musk has picked a fight with Minister Sikorski, and that Elon Musk is probably ill-advised to do so, but that's his style. He picks fights. In any event, the issue is policy toward Russia, and to achieve President Trump's goal of a sustainable peace in Russia, the U.S. and Europe are going to have to increase the pressure on Russia, and we have the tools to do it. That's where we should be focusing our attention.
Now, of course, these are just allegations, although from verifiable reports and sources. But to be clear, do you believe Mr. Musk, the richest man in the world, if this Starlink technology is being used, that he's aiding and abetting Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine?
I would say that all U.S. companies who sell high-tech products in the world need to do the proper due diligence to make sure it doesn't fall into Russia's hands. This is just good policy. And I don't need to go any farther than that. I don't think Elon Musk or anybody gets an exception.
If we can take a broader brush tonight, Mr. Ambassador, we've got the EU striking a trade deal with India. We've got the South American Mercosur agreement up in the air, and we've got Xi Jinping welcoming leader after leader to Beijing. Is Europe hedging its bets in the face of Donald Trump?
Well, the EU-India trade deal was years in the making. So Donald Trump didn't create this, but he may have spurred it on. The fact is,
It stalled for some time, Mr. Ambassador, didn't it? Donald Trump turbocharged the progress.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And it's also fair to say that if President Trump continues to use tariffs as an all-purpose tool on any issue that's uppermost in his mind, you will see a reaction. And I think that won't serve anybody's interest. Now, I hope that Europe deepens its ties with fellow democracies rather than deepening its ties with China. I think that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's speech in Davos was powerful, and he had a reason for it. But I think the outreach to China on trade, on easing Chinese exports of electric cars to Canada is not a great sign. Either middle powers defend the rules-based order, or they cut deals with authoritarian and potentially predatory powers. Really, they can't do both. And so I would like to see Europe, as it chooses how to respond to whatever it is we want to call Trump's foreign policy, chooses to remain true to its own best values, because a values-based foreign policy is actually not charity, it's a higher realism.
You know me so well, Mr. Ambassador, because I was just going to ask you about Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's comments to Davos last week. The old world order is gone, is what he said, and that middle powers must act together because if they're not at the table, they're on the menu. Are we, in your mind, seeing these growing middle powers, including India, say to the United States, well, if you push us away, if you blitz us with tariffs, we'll cash in elsewhere?
I'm trying to look for a happy ending to whatever it is we're going through. And a better ending or a happy ending also depends on Europe, Canada, other countries stepping up and doing more for the sake of the free world and its values. The U.S., one of the complaints that Trump has that has validity is that European powers have not done enough. And they're beginning to get that message and do more. In my view, President Trump should take yes for an answer and take the win. But until the United States does, European powers should step up more. Now, I think intellectually and strategically, Prime Minister Tusk and Foreign Minister Sikorsky are ready for this. I also think that President Novorotsky's efforts to keep working with the Trump administration and working with Trump World is well advised. That is, Poland is well regarded by everybody in Washington. It's got nothing but friends, and it can use that political capital to good purpose.
Very briefly on that, do you worry that Poland will, despite those good relationships, still be caught up in the increasing distance that America wants to have to NATO's eastern flank?
Well, one area of Trump foreign policy, which I think could work out well, is the offer of security backstopping for Ukraine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio today in Congress affirmed that the United States will back up the European forces, the coalition of the willing, inside Ukraine. Now, that's a very big deal. And President Trump has not withdrawn forces from Poland. President Trump likes Poland. Trump World likes Poland. They consider Poland to be a model ally. So Poland has something to work with. And I think Polish diplomacy has handled the Trump administration pretty well. So Poland, yes, it's true that Poland might face difficult choices, Europe versus the United States, but I think there is a place for Poland to be both a strong European power, one of the major countries in the EU, and a country with close ties to the United States in general and to Trump World in particular. Look, doing both at the same time is what diplomats get paid to do. And I think Polish diplomacy, Polish leadership is perfectly capable of doing this. Despite the political differences between the government and the presidency, both are capable, both know the United States well. So I think this is doable, and this is a good role for Poland.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to end with a consideration I've had across the course of the day preparing for our discussion, because when I think about Donald Trump and where we are today, internationally, he's failed to find peace in Ukraine. He's appearing to back down over the likes of Greenland, or at least using force there. Domestically, there's the ICE shooting of Alex Pretty. Is Donald Trump losing control of his agenda? I mean, has he opened too many fronts?
An excellent question. The American people elected Donald Trump, and one of the things they elected him on was his promise to control the border. He won that argument. They also elected him on a promise to avoid endless foreign wars. He won that argument too. But in the last couple of weeks, we have seen the U.S. threaten aggression against Greenland. That's just shocking to me. And more to the point, the American people didn't like it. The American people also don't like the behavior of ICE in Minneapolis. It appears ill-disciplined and trigger-happy, beating up people and shooting them, and then simply lying about it, calling the person who was killed a domestic terrorist or saying he was preparing to shoot ICE agents. The American people aren't accepting this. And President Trump may be retreating. The fact is, American society is still the society that polls know and have worked with. And our politics is not at an end. Much depends on how the Trump administration winds up and who succeeds it in the next elections. It's going to be a rough ride, and it is particularly rough for those of us who live here and watch the United States burn through a lot of accumulated political capital for no particularly good reason. But there are a lot of Republicans who maintain a Reaganite view, a pro-free world view of American strategy. The Democrats do, by and large. So there is a reasonable hope that when we get through whatever it is we're going through in the United States, we will end up in pretty good shape and possibly with a stronger Europe as a more equal partner. That's the optimistic variant. I understand that it's optimistic, but my job as a diplomat was to look for the path forward, the best one, no matter how narrow, how steep, and rough. Find that path forward and take it.
And it is always a pleasure to hear you articulate that path forward. Daniel Fried, former US ambassador to Poland, thank you as always for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all for World News tonight. But don't go anywhere. On the Record with Adam Yasser is next. I'm Aaron Dahmen. Good night.